Welcome back to another Bali COVID-19 update. This is March 13th, 2022, and my name is Bruce, and it's a little overcast today, but let's see, what's the wind speed? The wind speed is 3.4 kilometers per hour. The temperature is 31.2 degrees Celsius. It is hot today, and the humidity is 72%. So thank goodness for the wind, because wow, it was hot and sticky this morning. Okay, the lead story today, just one, is the difference between a VoA and a visit visa, or the B211, because it seems that some people are still confused about that. Immigration made some comments the other day to clarify the situation, and so I'm going to talk about those and the pros and cons of both. Foreigners are arriving in Bali, and I'm going to do a quick update at the end here and talk about a story I just saw a little while ago. The good news is people are coming, but we have to temper that with some hotels and tourist businesses have been, well, this is a sale right now, quick, get on and rent this room at the hotel for this price, because we're going to be increasing our prices because tourists are back. It's going to be a while before they're back in big numbers. There is an article about that, and I didn't get to that, and I'm going to talk about that one on Wednesday, about the hotel prices. And so it seems like all over Bali, things are loosening up here in Bulang. Schools are starting again tomorrow. Still restricted, but something is better than nothing at this point. And the public green spaces are opening up in Bulang as well. So there's some good news. And well, tomorrow is Monday, right? And there's usually something from Pak Luhut. Do you think he's going to change the level to bring us down to 2, or are we going to stay at 3 for another week? Let's hope we go down to level 2. We've got people coming in here. Things are open. I don't know why we're still at level 3. I think we should go down to level 2, but that's just my opinion. I'm not a government official. And for all new subscribers, welcome and thank you. I appreciate the support. So there are a lot of segments today, and let's get started with the numbers, which are looking pretty good. Okay, what are the numbers like? New national cases, 14,900. Good news, wow. We're dropping. National recoveries, 33,733. And national deaths, 248. Still too high, and there is a segment on that here, but it's down from the other day. And what about Bali? Bali new cases, 152, okay? Good news, we're going down towards the 100 and below. Hopefully. Bali recoveries, 304, and Bali deaths, that's really good news, 0. And the big push for vaccinations is continuing to go on around the island. So numbers are looking good, they're getting better. We do have Ramadan coming up soon, and of course, then there'll be Idul Fitri at the end of that, and then Lebaran and Mudik. People will be moving around, millions of people moving around, one of the biggest movements in the world. And well, we get spikes every year, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Good news on the numbers, they're getting better all the time, and I'm not going to break into a Beatles song. Let's go and take a look at the main story. And this is going to be the lead story right now, because there still seems to be some confusion about the VOA and visitor visas, and so let's take a look at that. The Directorate General of Immigration clarifies the differences between a visa on arrival, the VOA, for tourism, and a visitor visa, such as the B211A. The VOA is for a shorter length of stay than the visitor's visa. The sub-coordinator for public relations from the Director General of Immigration, Pak Ahmad, said in a written statement that foreign tourists using the VOA are allowed a shorter period of stay. They're allowed 30 days, and that can be extended one time for another 30 days. In comparison, the B211A is issued for a 60-day initial period and can be extended 4 times to permit a maximum stay of 180 days. Another significant difference between the VOA and the visitor's visa is the VOA cannot be altered or upgraded into another visa. So you can renew it once, then you have to leave the country. You can't get another visa here on shore. You have to go back offshore. Visa runs again, people. On the other hand, a visitor's visa can be converted into a temporary stay permit, ITAS. Pak Ahmed continued, a VOA is available without the need for a guarantor or sponsor. That's one of the reasons why VOA cannot be converted into an ITAS. To obtain the VOA, foreign visitors need to prepare a passport that will remain valid for 6 months and have a ticket to leave Indonesia at the end of their stay. So what would you prefer? You've got the VOA, 500,000 for the first one, and second one I see people are paying, if they do it themselves, they can do it for 500,000, but they do it with an agent, 750, 800,000 I've seen. So that's around 1,300,000, let's say, versus if you get a B211A, you're talking about anywhere between 3 million, 3.5 billion, higher if you use some people who are overcharging. But you've got that option then to stay for 6 months. So if you're going to be a long-term person, you want to get the B211A, and you can renew that for up to 6 months, whereas if you get the VOA, you come in, you can renew it once, okay, that's 60 days, and then you have to fly to Singapore, let's say, and then come back and do it again. That you would have to do that a couple times to equal the B211A. And I don't know how this is going to work now, but right before the pandemic started, Singapore was starting to crack down on people doing visa runs. And well, some people got away with it, and some people were told not to do it anymore. Some people were even turned away. So I'm not sure how the visa run is going to work once people start doing that again, if the VOA stays. And well, there's a good chance that it will not only stay here in Bali, but by April it will be extended to the whole country. When I was talking about the numbers the other day, I was mentioning the increase in deaths, despite the fact that the new cases have been steady or going down and recoveries have been up. Here's an article on that. Indonesia sees decline in COVID-19 cases, yet hike in deaths. Indonesia's recorded a downward trend in COVID cases by up to 50% over the last few weeks, according to a spokesperson for the COVID-19 task force, Wiku Adhisa. According to him, the declining number of cases can be seen since the peak of the virus on February 20th. In previous weeks, he said, there were up to 400,000 cases a week, and now it is down to 200,000. But he said, we're trying to suppress it down to 1,000 a week. Okay, we've got a ways to go for that. He added that the recovery rate is also positive. It's gone from 86% to almost 90%, and the hospital bed occupancy rate at referral hospitals has started to decline over the past few days, and it's gone from 38.79% to 26.2%. Okay, that's a good drop. And though, as I said, the numbers are starting to look good in terms of new cases and in recoveries and bed occupancy rates, the number of deaths is still increasing. And so the task force noted that on February 21st to 27th, there were 1,708 deaths. And in the following week, the figure rose to 2,099. And so Pak Wiku encouraged vulnerable groups, including the elderly or people with comorbidities, to receive a complete vaccination course, because there's still apparently a lot of elderly people who are not getting a full dose. And so let's hope that the number of deaths starts to come down quickly. We talked about plans to move Indonesia from the pandemic to the endemic phase, and here's an editorial in the Jakarta Post, moving to endemic phase. It starts out saying, how soon should Indonesia transition? It says, not a moment too soon. Many countries in this region, including Malaysia and Thailand, are already moving to that direction. They say Indonesia have confidence to take a similar step. They said we've had to deal with new coronaviruses these last 2 years, and we know what to do in the case of another major outbreak. Besides, the national vaccination rate has reached 72% of the targeted 208 million, and on top of that, millions who have been infected and survived are developing immunity in that way. The transition to endemic phase will mean removing many of the social mobility restrictions that have been in place for 2 years and that are getting really irritating at this stage. And last Monday, the government lifted the mandatory proof of COVID-19 vaccination test for domestic travelers, and the mandatory quarantine for incoming travel from outside Indonesia has been cut to 1 day and even removed completely in Bali. All good signs. And, well, they say, why the discrepancy? Why not just get rid of the quarantine everywhere? Well, that's the plan, right? The plan is to do that in April, and so let's hope that happens. And the editorial notes that some argue that the current figures do not support a case for making the transition. The 401 related COVID deaths on Tuesday represents the highest daily number since the first reported cases of the Omicron variant in January. But it says, if we look at the bigger picture and trends in infection and hospitalization rates, the government has the situation under control. And they said they think it's important that when the government decides to move from the pandemic to the endemic phase, that it should be announced by President Jokowi, because he was the one who issued the presidential decree declaring a national health emergency in March of 2020. And also that when he breaks the news to the nation, he should send a clear message that the end of the pandemic does not mean a full return to normalcy. And the editorial concludes saying, our resiliency towards COVID-19 will be put to the test in the coming Eid al-Fitr holiday period. At the end of April and the beginning of May, as it is every year, this is normally the time when millions of people travel to their hometowns to celebrate the Islamic holiday. And in 2020 and 2021, even though they were told not to, people did it anyway, and we had spikes each year. I said in the last video I was going to talk more about how COVID affects the brain, even mild cases of COVID, and I had this CNN article, and so here it is. Study links even mild COVID-19 to changes in the brain. The study published last Monday in the journal Nature is believed to be the largest of its kind. It found that the brains of those who had COVID had a greater loss of gray matter and abnormalities in the brain tissue compared with those who didn't have COVID-19. Many of these changes were in the area of the brain related to the sense of smell. Okay, and that has been a problem of mine over the last 3 weeks. It didn't go away originally. Now it kind of comes and goes. There are times when I just get overwhelmed by this chemical smell, and then it disappears within 24 hours. The lead author, Dr. Duad, and her colleagues evaluated brain imaging from 401 people who had COVID-19 between March 2020 and April 2021, both before infection and an average of 4.5 months after infection. They compared the results with brain imaging of 384 uninfected people, similar in age, socioeconomic status, and risk factors such as blood pressure and obesity. Of the 401 infected people, 15 had been hospitalized. The 785 participants were between the ages of 51 and 81, and were all part of the UK Biobank, an ongoing government health database of 500,000 people begun in 2012. Dr. Duad explained that it's normal for people to lose 0.2% to 0.3% of gray matter every year in the memory-related areas of the brain as they age. But in the study evaluation, people who had been infected with the coronavirus lost an additional 0.2 to 2% in tissue compared with those who hadn't been infected. In addition to imaging, the participants were tested for their executive and cognitive functions using the trail-making test, a tool used to help detect cognitive impairments associated with dementia and test a person's brain processing speed and function. And I had one of those after my second stroke. Although the areas of the brain most affected appear to be related to the olfactory system, the doctor said it wasn't clear why that was the case. She said since the abnormal changes we see in the infected participants' brains might be partly related to their loss of smell, it's possible that recovering it might lead to these brain abnormalities becoming less marked over time. Similarly, it's likely that the harmful effects of the virus, whether direct or indirect, via inflammatory or immune reactions, decrease over time after infection. The best way to find out would be to scan these participants again in 1 or 2 years' time. And while the study finds some association between infection and brain function, it's still not clear why. Previous studies have shown people with significant and repeated loss of smell also have an associated loss of gray matter. However, this study did not evaluate whether people actually had a loss of smell. The authors cautioned that the findings were only a moment in time, but noted that they raised the possibility that longer-term consequences of SARS-CoV-2 infection might in time contribute to Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia. According to Dr. Richard Isaacson, a neurologist and director of the Florida Atlantic University Center for Brain Health, he said that the findings are noticeable, but they're not enough to cause alarm. He said it's really hard to know the long-term clinical impact and quality of life impact in a situation like this. And according to Dr. Alan Carson, a professor of neuropsychiatry at the Center for Clinical Brain Sciences at the University of Edinburgh, who was not involved in the study, he said, what this study almost certainly shows is the impact in terms of neural changes, but I don't think it helps us understand the mechanisms underpinning cognitive change after COVID infection. And there are going to be a lot of studies going on over the next few years about how COVID, both short-term and long-term, affects the brain as well as other organs of the body. And more on education. Just a note in case I forget in the wrap-up, Booling is supposed to open schools starting tomorrow, the 14th. Well, only 50%, but 50% is better than nothing. And it's about time. Okay, educators want government to hold off on omnibus education bill. I don't know. Why are they making these bills now? So let's see what this article says, because I'm saying, yeah, why make another bill? Things are screwed up right now. Focus on one thing at a time. The sweeping bill seeks to modernize the country's education system, supplementing the 2003 National Education System Law, as well as provision in the 2005 Teachers and Lecturers Law and the 2012 Higher Education Law. The ministry is hoping to see the bill passed into law next year, and it's already been listed as a priority for the 2020 to 2024 legislative period. But representatives of educator groups said that the moment is not right for the government to spend its time and resources on making an entirely new law. Yes, that's right. Particularly when the pandemic has brought the issue of learning loss to the forefront. Let's focus on learning loss and how we're going to deal with that. We've thrown a generation under the bus. For much of the pandemic, schools have been caught in a policy dilemma between in-person and distance learning, as health calls have periodically required schools to go online despite inadequate access to digital devices. And here in Bali, they've been closed almost completely over the last, 18 months. The Deputy Secretary General of the Indonesian Teachers Association said the current draft of the bill was also far from what teachers were hoping for an all-encompassing law on education, since it did not detail a master plan for the country's education system going forward. Aditomo, the head of the ministry's education standard, curriculum and assessment agency, said the bill was only in the early stages of development, adding that the ministry would seek as much input from stakeholders as possible. Well, no details of the bill, few have been released to the public, but he said an early draft had gone through a round of discussions with more than 40 educational organizations, and that such sessions were being planned, more such sessions were being planned. The Educators Association said one of the bill's current provisions would make education compulsory for students until 18 years old. Currently it's 15. And this was widely welcomed by just about everybody. Iman Zanatul Harry of the Association for Education and Teachers, P2G, said the draft was still missing important provisions about teachers' welfare. Unlike other professions, once teachers get their certification, that's the end of their career. Well, maybe here, in some other places you can do professional development and go other ways, but yeah, career development for teachers is not the best in the world. Even if they enroll in further education or have years of experience they will have no career trajectory. He said that most teachers eventually quit their jobs and go to work for local education agencies, or they become school principals for better living. He said, but with these new jobs, they often do not teach. If we want to improve the quality of education in school, the omnibus education bill must provide a clear scheme for career development. And Malaysia is getting ready to reopen. Malaysia to reopen tourists after 2-year COVID closure. So Malaysia will reopen to all vaccinated tourists starting on April 1st, authorities said this past week, joining a growing number of countries removing restrictions in an attempt to live with COVID. The tourism-reliant Southeast Asian country, known for its white sand beaches and lush rainforest, shut its borders in March 2020, but will now require only a negative COVID test to enter. Okay, so that's not much. The Prime Minister of Malaysia said, "We believe this decision will boost our economy and help revive our ailing tourism sector." The reopening comes despite Malaysia reporting more than 25,000 infections a day in recent weeks, though most cases appear to have been mild. And Malaysia's economy in 2020 contracted 5.6%, but rebounded last year to 3.1% growth. Malaysia-based AirAsia, one of Southeast Asia's top budget airlines, called the move timely and said it will provide a strong impetus for recovery of tourism and aviation. The group's chief executive, Bolingam, told AFP that the carrier hoped to move around 1 million passengers in the first week. Wow. Vaccinated travelers will not be subject to quarantine, but will still need to produce a negative PCR test taken 2 days before arrival and take an antigen test in the 24 hours after entry. Previously, only travelers from Singapore were allowed quarantine-free entry. Malaysia recorded more than 3.6 million COVID cases to date and more than 33,000 deaths. About 80% of the country's population, which is around 32 million, has been fully vaccinated. And what's happening with tourism in Bali? KLM joins 5 international air carriers flying to Bali Airport. So we have another airline coming into Bali. That's great news. Angkasa Pura I, General Manager of the airport, Harry A.Y. Sicado, said, "We are serving additional inaugural Singapore-Denpasar flights from KLM Royal Dutch, which were temporarily halted during the COVID-19 pandemic." KLM's inaugural flight back to Bali arrived on Wednesday, March 9th, transporting 76 passengers from Singapore, and then it returned to Singapore the same night carrying 15 passengers. So I don't know that they're making any money, but it's nice to have them back. And this adds to the number of regular international flights to and from Bali, and that includes Singapore Airlines, Garuda Indonesia, Scoot, Jetstar Asia, and AirAsia. I didn't know AirAsia was already flying here. Anybody know anything about AirAsia coming in? Has anybody flown on AirAsia or booked a flight on AirAsia? Please leave a comment. So I was talking the other day about the end of the need for antigen and PCR tests to travel domestically. Well, free of antigen and PCR, passengers at Sultan Hasanuddin Airport increased by 20%. Okay, Sultan Hasanuddin Airport is in Sulawesi, in Makassar. Although the number of passengers has increased, flights at the airport are still volatile. Stakeholder Relations Manager of the airport said that since the implementation of the new rule on PPDN, that's domestic travelers, the number of passengers has increased. He said that the average number of passengers at the airport now is around 25,000. However, as I mentioned, although the number of passengers has increased, the number of flights is fluctuating. He said on March 7th there was 181. On March 8th it dropped to 171. On March 9th it went to 185. It doesn't sound like huge fluctuations to me, but I don't work there and I don't know anything about the airline business. And just to remind you, in case you forgot, PPDN domestic travelers who have received complete vaccines or boosters are not required to show negative PCR antigen results, but you do have to have this on your Peduli Lindungi in order to prove that you're fully vaxxed. It is, however, different for our prospective passengers who have had only one vaccine. They are still required to show an antigen or PCR test. If the results show a negative PCR result, the sample has to be taken within 3 to 24 hours, so 72 hours before you depart. And the number of passengers from January to February 2022 was 1,338,759 compared with the year before. It is 34.5% higher. Okay, good news that the economy is coming back. And here's something on MotoGP, and this is an interesting one for a drone pilot like me. Airnav Indonesia bars drone from operating the Mandalika circuit. So the national air navigation firm, Airnav Indonesia, has asserted that it will not issue any recommendation letters for the operation of drones to any parties during the MotoGP events coming up. This is with the exception of the organizers Dormitory and the Indonesian Tourism Development Corporation, according to the president director of Airnav. She said that the illegal operation of drones is a threat to the safety of flight operations and the public, particularly the racers and spectators at the international event. She claimed her side has conducted a number of safety campaigns related to the prohibition of drone operations without permission during the event. She said, based on the data, 21 drones have been taken down during the 2022 MotoGP pre-session test on February 10th to 12th. So the drone pilots are out there buzzing away, and I guess I would too if I was out there with my drone. I haven't flown my drone in so long, because it is so windy here all the time. So if you are a drone pilot, no flying around the Mandalika circuit. Too bad. No cool drone shots of the races. That's life. And here's some good news about tourism in Bali. Tanah started many, usually hundreds, now have thousands of visitors. Boy, I just ran this through Google Translate. What a messy translation this is. So what this says is that Tanah has had hundreds of visitors in the past, but now they've gone up to thousands of visitors. So the new policy for foreign travelers and the removal of the quarantine period has helped, although it hasn't helped appreciably because it's just started. And likewise, the policy of domestic travelers, PPDN, that is what domestic travelers are called, which abolishes the requirements for PCR and rapid antigen tests, is very positive and is welcomed by the tourism business players. According to the head of public relations for Tanah, that's a new policy implemented by PPLN and PPDN. The domino effect of tourism has not immediately, directly impacted Tanah, but we're hoping that over the next 2 or 3 weeks, it will. And according to the head of public relations, since January to February, there's been an increase in the number of visits. Usually, Tanah gets on the average 200 to 300 visits a day, and now it's reached 1,500 to 2,000 visits. So great news for tourism in Bali, and with people coming in, the numbers should continue to increase in our tourist spots. And I've been talking on and off during these videos about different ways that people are moving ahead and getting around being overly dependent on tourism. And here's an interesting article about the village of Les, which is just down the road. Well, it's quite a ways down the road from here, but it's out along the East Coast. Developed traditional salt, Les Village performs modern packaging and branding. As a village located in a coastal area, Les Village has the potential for traditional sea salt farming with high selling power. For this reason, various empowerment efforts continue to be carried out by the Les Village government. According to the Perbaka Les Gede Adi Wistara, he said his party is supporting training in the community and product promotions. He said, especially with the governor's policy, which has issued a circular regarding the use of local products, we at Les prepare this salt as a commodity so that it can later be used by the whole world. Yeah. He continued that the salt production is entirely carried out using traditional methods that have been handed down by salt farmers on the coast of Les Village, such as using traditional filters made of woven bamboo sticks or FIS. As for the processing, the local government empowers the Sari Lestari village-owned enterprise for packaging and marketing. The salt packaging is done in a modern way with the typical branding of Les Village. I haven't seen any of this. If you've seen any of this, let me know. And if you know any place that it's selling, I would like to get some. In addition, the Prabhakar said that his party also innovates, namely salt products with various flavors, such as sweet, spicy, and original. The selling price is 8 to 10,000 rupees with a weight of about half a kilogram. 10,000 rupees for half a kilogram of salt? I will buy it immediately. Wow. Through the support he received from both the regional and central government, Adi is optimistic the traditional salt products of Les Village can develop rapidly and can penetrate national and international markets. And this news is everywhere. This is on social media, it's in the Indonesian press, it's in Western press. Russian tourists in Bali can't withdraw ATM cash due to war sanctions in Ukraine. Sanctions from Western countries against Russian banks due to the invasion of Ukraine are now taking toll on Russian citizens abroad. They're having a hard time getting cash from ATMs or switching to crypto transactions, according to this. Although on social media I saw that a number of Russians have crypto accounts and have been accessing them. According to Ivanov, 27 years old, who was quoted in this article, this is a big problem for us. We really can't carry out financial transactions. It seems our funds are frozen and we can't use them here. According to BPS data, 1,150 Russian tourists entered Indonesia in January 2022. Rifki Yanto, one of the managers of a cafe in Bali, said Russian tourists recently paid more with cash than credit cards. Yes, because their credit cards aren't working. The Russian embassy in Jakarta said it was ready to provide information and assistance to citizens who were facing financial problems. A Russian embassy spokesman said Russia's Pokta Bank is now offering virtual cards using China's Union Pay system, not Visa or MasterCharge. He said it's free and people can open it anywhere. Meanwhile, more than 7,000 Russians are now stranded in Thailand, according to this article, due to flight cancellations, the fall of the ruble, and payment problems. And if you've been following the international news, you know that Russian economy is having a problem now. And so Russians over in Southeast Asia are having some problems right now. If anybody watching this video is from Russia and you want to share how you're doing and how you've managed to work out a way to get financial transactions done, please share it with a comment. Thanks. And good news on the COVID situation in Bulang. COVID-19 cases slope. Undiskha Dormitory Isoter closed. So because of the development in confirmed cases in Bulang, which is going down, the Bulang Regency COVID-19 Task Force decided to close a centralized or Isoter isolation facility at the Undiskha Dormitory in Jingandalam. The head of the Bulang Regency Regional Disaster Management Agency, Putu Aryata Pribadi, said that their closure of the Isoter coincided with the zero OTG-GR, that's the no symptoms, mild symptoms, cases being treated. Then the implementation of the Isoter will be transferred to an isolation facility in villages. He said, starting today, March 10th, it will be closed to treat OTG-GR patients, and if there are patients who need treatment, they can go to isolation facilities in the village. Regarding the implementation of Isoters in the village, his party coordinated with all sub-districts of Bulang Regency since some time ago. The implementation of the Isoter in villages is quite helpful to district Isoters in terms of capacity. However, Aryata is still preparing to anticipate the district Isoters in Kompisi Kubuab in case of an increase again. And Aryata hopes that the confirmed cases in Bulang can continue to decline, and for that reason he reminds people, as everyone does, to follow the protocols. And here's an interesting story that can impact a lot of businesses. Bali Shoreside businesses to be closed. Bali Provincial Enforcement Officers, FATPOL PP, in cooperation with their counterparts from the Regency of Badung, are surveying and recording beach time businesses and traders in the Barawa Beach area of Canggu. Yes, Canggu is in the news again. who are failing to comply with the minimum zoning setback rule for structures of 100 meters from the high water mark. The head of the provincial Satpol PP, Dewa Ray Darmadi, said that the principle is that if we do not take action now, when will we do so? We can't wait too long considering the way the panoramic view of the beach is being damaged. So this is about tourism. Yeah, and having nice clean beaches for those Instagram, YouTuber, and TikTokers. Pak Darmadi called on the public to do what they could and not try to appropriate public land to open private businesses. For this reason, he said, the provincial Satpol PP is surveying companies and individuals suspected of breaking the law through the unauthorized use of public land in building structures standing too close to the shoreline. In a recent survey lasting 3 hours, the Satpol PP team discovered 22 warungs and bars operating in violation of the law. From the 22 businesses, 17 identity cards, the KTP of the owners were seized as a means of compelling these individuals to attend a more formal legal proceeding at a later date. 5 illegal warung and bar operators did not present a valid ID card, KTP. Pak Darmadi continued, if we're only talking about an umbrella, a sunbed, or a table, some leniency might be possible. But if someone has constructed a semi-permanent or permanent building within the prohibited setback area from the shoreline, this is an infringement on public land. He said these semi-permanent and permanent structures close to the shore disturb the beach panorama, particularly when tourists come to the beach to enjoy the sunset. The current steps taken by provincial authorities against businesses operating too close to the beach are being done due to complaints from domestic and international tourists and local residents. Really? Okay. So, reacting to the complaints from the public, the Satpol PP has begun to move against beachside traders in Canggu, with other areas of Bali expected to follow. This enforcement is part of the preserving of the natural beauty of the tourism destination, he said. Darmadi admitted many people setting up business on the beach had done so because of the continuing pandemic and because they didn't have any other way to make any money. And he added, selling in these areas violates setback rules and reduces the size of the public right-of-way. We will therefore summon them and request them voluntarily to demolish their businesses. Other matters, such as the possibility of relocation of their businesses to new locations, can be discussed with the appropriate authorities. And he emphasized that surveying beachside areas and identify businesses that violate the 100-meter setback rule will eventually move to other places besides just Brawa Beach in Canggu. So, one of the things I loved about hanging around the beaches back in the old days when I was around Kuta was the little places there where you could get something to drink and eat, just a snack, and hang out and talk to the locals. What's going to be left? They're going to demolish all this stuff and you're just going to have these big beach clubs? They're an eyesore. So we'll see how this works out. Okay, the toll road. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you've heard me talk about the Gilimanuk to Denpasar road and how dangerous it is. And, well, I haven't driven on it now for quite a while because the last time I was on it, I was almost hit by a truck and then almost hit by a bus. That is just a dangerous place. So they're building a toll road, and I've talked about that before a long time ago. 96.9 kilometer Gilimanuk-Mengwi Toll by November 24, so another 2.5 years from now. The Minister of Public Works and Public Housing, Basuki Hadi Muljono, said that the Gilimanuk-Mengwi Toll Road in West Bali will feature dedicated lanes for motorcycles. Now, there are dedicated lanes for motorcycles in Singaraja. If you've seen one of my walking videos here, Singaraja snippets, we've got one right down here over in Nurai, and nobody uses it. In a statement that is incorrect and ignores the current motorcycle lanes in operation on the Bali Mandara toll road, which I've never been on, connecting Sanur Kuta and Nusa Dua, the minister said this is maybe the first toll road in Indonesia with a lane for motorcycles. Because this is a tourism area, we must make allowances for the need of tourism players. And he said they would be ensuring the construction of the roadway takes care to protect the natural environment. How will they do that? We will build the road to the best of our ability while working with all of our might to continue and maintain the environment. Initially, we were going to build a toll road in the middle of Bali that was going to be here I remember that one. I was not looking forward to that. But I felt that if we build a toll road in the middle of the island, it would damage the environment. So we decided to build a road on the beach. That's not going to damage the environment at all. When completed, the Gilimanuk-Mengwi Toll Road will boost tourism development in Bali's west and north and substantially reduce the traveling time between the city of Gilimanuk and Bali's capital of Denpasar. The toll road is going to cross 3 different regencies, Badung, Jembrana, and Tabanan, and the road is being constructed at the cost of 24.6 trillion rupiah, with work to begin in June, a couple of months from now, and completed in November 2024. And here's another project that's going to be done while we got tourists back here. The Gilimanuk Perkutaan sector will feature 4 lanes, 2 lanes in opposite directions, and the next sector will have a separate lane reserved for motorcycles and a pedestrian pathway. Oh, something for pedestrians. Good. Okay, time for update and a wrap. This is going to be a short one today. What are the updates? Indonesia resumed the visa on arrival policy for tourism, resulting in an increasing number of foreign tourists applying for this visa. On the second day of the implementation, Bali Airport Immigration recorded 31 people from 2 airlines applying for the VOA. Okay, 31, not thousands, 31. Okay, let's be real about this when we're talking about numbers. We are not going to get flooded with people right away. There were 12 foreign tourists from Jetstar Asia Airways with the route of Singapore at Denpasar, and 28 foreigners from Singapore Airlines on the Denpasar-Singapore route, according to Jamaruli Manihuruk, the head officer of Bali's Ministry of Law and Human Rights. So he said that this was good news for Indonesia, especially for the tourism sector. He hopes that the VOA policy will attract more foreign visitors to Indonesia, but still by abiding by the health protocols and prevailing regulations. And so we want more people, but you've got to obey the rules. And there will be people coming in. I see people booking for April and May, and well, that's good news. Okay, that's it for the update. And what's the wrap up? The wrap up is things are getting better. Tourists are coming in. We're getting more planes coming into the island. The VOA seems to be working. I'm going to add a link down here to a story from somebody that flew in so you can see exactly what happened. It's very clear about how to go through the process, and so if you're considering coming in here or planning on coming in here soon, you might want to take a look at that, and it's down there below in the description. Okay, that's it. If you found this video helpful, useful, informative, non-irritating, amusing, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. We are going to start doing the cooking videos again. We were going to do one today, but my wife had to go down to Denpasar to pick up our granddaughter and bring her back home. And I will be uploading the one we did on beef rendang. And so it's not kind of the usual video that we make with a lot of joking and laughing and silliness, because we are both just trying to get through it. And then we decided to put it off until we're better, and we are better now. So tomorrow we're going to make a video on, I think Sue is planning on doing chicken curry. And with Ramadan coming up, there's going to be a lot of videos on baking, because she bakes constantly during Ramadan, getting ready for Lebaran. So all sorts of cookies and snacks and things. And so we're going to have a lot of videos on those coming up. Okay, thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe, and I will see you on Wednesday.